a product of knowledge. You are Michael. Okay, I know it. Now you are Michael, that sentence, that thought has already left me, and I have a knowledge about you, about a person, about an object. Now say I am a real self, no confusion is there. I have to know it. Knowing is important, so the thought is obviously very important. But because we have lot of crazy thoughts going on, the mind is still impure. So the first stage of the journey is to purify the mind. So at least when we say the emptiness, that emptiness means that I am free from the crazy thoughts, I have a natural focus, and I can start the journey of the self-discovery. Otherwise, in the case of mind, is become a store, a mall full of people. That is not the right mind, that is not the mind, is unprepared mind.
So I hear people talking about their mind running and they can't stop thinking, and when they meditate, all they do is have all these thoughts, and I don't have anything like that. It's very focused. I don't have any of that going on in that meditation, but I think, and I know I am present, I am behind that. I do try to put myself in the, I struggle to, I think, why do I not receive the knowledge? Why can I not experience the self? It's, I try in every moment of the day, really, or don't try even, just observe and be, but I have no explosive experience, I just experience, but I can see my mind has been changed significantly. Meditation is very different now.
Yes.
But yeah, obviously I'm not anywhere near, well, maybe I am here, but I don't know the next step of how I should, when I'm in those states, what I should be looking for.
Knowing. I know where my house is, I need not to think, but still the thought gives me that knowledge. I know where is the restroom, where is the kitchen, where is my shirt. This is my... So obviously the thought is a product of knowledge. Thought is equal to I am plus knowledge of an object, plus a reflected consciousness, that is the mind, plus the consciousness. So there are 4 elements in the thought that we will obviously, this Master Krishna helps us to understand in detail about it. So let us return to, we have been studying Gita, understanding Gita. So today we will have a context before we take up the verse number 12. Just to remind, 18 chapters, the first 6 chapters deals with the karma, the clarity of the nature of the real self. First 6 chapters explain about the real I and the individual, which is known as the false self. And the middle 6 chapters is about the clarity about the supreme consciousness. What exactly is the supreme consciousness? So if we understand the supreme consciousness now, in the next 6 chapters, makes the clarity about the real nature, whether the real nature, real self, or the supreme consciousness are one, or if they are different. If they are different, then how they are different, and if the real self is the supreme self, how? Then what happens? what happens to my life, my way of thinking, working, and living in this world. So in the chapter 2, from verse number 11 to almost 20 verses, clears everything about our real nature. So the verse 11, we have gone through it, and we have Master clears all the doubts that we are not worthy of suffering at all. We are not at all worthy of suffering. So we discussed in the chapter 1 about the 3 diseases, and every master has taken this verse in a different ways, depending on the nature, the stage of evolution of a seeker. So just to recap, we understand attachment versus love. If I say I am a giver now, I am a contributor in the world. I always think I wake up in the morning and now I see that how can I contribute to the growth of an employee? Obviously, the employee is working, he's getting a salary. How can I contribute to my honey? I am not expecting. The moment you have an idea of expectation, the attachment begins, the likes and dislikes begins. So we have discussed in detail about the emotional freedom versus emotional bondage. That is the attachment versus the love. Taking love and giving love. Taking love is attachment, giving love is love. That is why giving unconditional. It does not depend on the preferences of likes and dislikes. If I am giving love, whether you like me or dislike me, I still give you the love. That is normally the nature of all the teachers in the wisdom. Attachment is conditional because I like you, hence I love you. If I dislike you, the question of love does not arise. Basically, this attachment is a kind of a weakness. Love brings the self-fulfillment. That is how we understood. Then we also understood the basics of what is this birth and the death. And we realized that death, there is an extreme fear of the death which is unknown. So it means what? I live in ignorance about the death. If I understand clearly the fear of the death is unknown. And unknown has 2 parts. One, I don't know, so I can know it. But the death is unknowable. So basically that fear of the death is an extreme attachment, extreme RSM syndrome. And that is why, because the fear of death is that I have a fear of losing what I have, where I have given a label of me, mine. This is me, this is mine. I am rich, I am known, I have 1 million followers, etc., etc. So this verse also gives a deeper insight, and it makes my mind so easy. Oh, there is no fear of death as such. I have a fear of losing. We also had a pragmatic approach. The pragmatic approach. Sadness does not give me anything. Grief does not offer me anything. So there is a confusion, and still I become sad. So we dig deep inside. That confusion of being sad does not make any change in my life. But at the same time, this journey has to be undertaken with an attitude of surrender, helplessness. So surrender and helplessness is basically a recognition that I do not know what is my real nature. And that can only happen if I leave the past knowledge. I keep the past knowledge aside. Mind is heavily conditioned about who am I. So the seeker opens his mind and heart. That is the meaning of the surrender. Or there is another way, you start looking at the source of the I, and then you merge into the source. That is where, so the source, now we come to the, it's a verse number 12. Many people say that it is very difficult, unusual, and very important verse. When we listen to it, it seems very difficult. So instead of making it very difficult, we covered the knower number 1, knower number 2, knower number 3. So that is why I titled this talk as How to Understand What Exactly is the Real Self. Real Self. So in the process of knowledge, I know my house. So my house is an object of knowledge. I know my house. I know is a knower, and there is a knowing in between that, a recognition, an understanding, you can say, or an information. So every master talks about that. Let us find out the knower. We are not concerned about the objective reality. We want to know, who am I? The first 6 chapters of the Gita clears about who am I. So here comes the verse number 12. It makes it clear, but we have to make a contest first. I see you, I know you. So I see you, I become the sense organ, the knower number 1. I become the, but these sense organs are conscious. A knower has to be conscious. If the knower is not conscious, it cannot be the knower. So we are aware that these sense organs are not me, but still I use the word I know you, I see you, I hear you, I taste this food. That is the knower 1. Knower 1 means what it means. The knower has to be conscious. So because I say I know you, it means there is a consciousness in that knower which illuminates, which knows, that gives me the knowledge. Put a salt on the tongue. Tongue says it is salty, so the tongue becomes the knower number 1. I hear the music, I hear the music, I become the ear, knower number 1. Knower is also called the seer, or you may say also the witness consciousness. Why we say it is a witness consciousness? I'm picking up the small threads of it. The knower is always a witness. Knower knows, knower is not affected. How can you say the knower is not affected? Okay, I see the red color through my eyes, or yellow color, or blue color. My eyes does not become blue, red and yellow. So that is why it is known as a witness consciousness. It is not affected. So there we got a clue. What is that real self which is indifferent, not affected by anything in the world, and still present in the world outside? Oh, you see, very small and little things makes a difference. So that knower is called the seer, witness consciousness. How that knower knows? Knower covers the object completely. Now we have to understand this meaning. Here is a mouse. So that consciousness of the I covers the boundary of the mouse completely. Consciousness covers the mouse completely, so that it can differentiate from the rest of the objects. That is one of the most important quality of the knower. The mouse is in front of you, and if the mouse thinks that I A mouse says that I know you know. As comparison to the mouse, we are maybe 10,000 times bigger. So that mouse perception is limited. Mouse does not know me completely, so it does not cover completely. So in a wrong perception, they are caught. Same thing happens with all the animals. Now, as compared to the entire cosmos, we are even less than the mouse. We don't know what is the word, but we claim we know the word. It does not cover, the mind does not cover the entire cosmos that stretches to the infinity. Oh, so there is a confusion. I have to remove that confusion. So the knower number one, now that is where the principles, operating principles have come about. What are the operating principles? First operating principle, when we say knower, it is the subject. When we say known, it is an object. So knower and the known are always separate. One thing. Knower has a consciousness, and the known is not conscious. I know you. When I say you, I see you. I see your body, and body is a matter, and still I claim I know you. This is totally a misconception. Or I create another misconception through the knower number two. Oh, you are my honey. So I'm just giving you the first principle. The knower and the known are always separate. Knower is always one with reference to one type of knowledge, and the known are many. What it means? Through my eyes, in sitting in my room, I know the screen. I am virtually present before you. I know you. I see the screen. I see the color. I see lot of objects. So known objects are many. Known, I. Knower is one. Who is that knower? Is the I. Similarly, the tongue as a knower is one, but I can taste many fragrances. I can listen to many sounds. So objects are always many. Then the third operating principle, it does not affect the knower. Whether I see an ant or I see an elephant, my eyes does not become big or small as a knower. So we carry forward these operating principles in understanding knower number one, all the sense organs. Now another principle, does the knower gets attached with the object? Answer is no. Because if I am attached to you, then my eyes will exclude other objects. But it is not. It is still aware of other objects. Oh, it is aware of the salt. It is aware of the sweetness. It is aware of the bitter. It is aware of, oh, so that awareness is the knower number one. Does the knower associate with any object? No. No, not at all. All the ears illuminates. Now I'm using another word, but it's same thing. It means nose. Ears illuminate the sound. The knower as a knower. The eyes as a knower illuminates the different objects and their colors and their forms. The tongue illuminates as a knower the different taste, and the nose illuminates the different smells. The smells are many, fragrances are many, tastes are many, objects are many, but it is the same knower. Knower and the known are two things in which the process of knowing takes place. Knower is always separate from the known. A knower is called the subject and the known is called the object. Objects are many, but the knower is one. Knower illuminates means it pervades the object. then only it can know. If it does not pervade that object, I see you means that my mind through the sense organ has created a boundary as a you, as an object. If the knower does not pervade the object, it cannot give us the knowledge. Knower is more pervasive than the known or the object. Pervasive means it pervades, it permeates, it is present in every object, then only it knows. If it does not permeate, that is what happens. Oh, I love you, honey, and then I hate you, honey, because I don't know. There is not a complete knowledge. If the knower changes, now the main principle comes. If the knower changes, it means it cannot give me the right knowledge. So I have to verify and validate if the knower are the sense organs, and if these sense organs are changes, they change. It means it cannot be the perfect knower. Eyes, after 30 years of my age, I started wearing glasses. So obviously, these eyes have undergone a physical changes. Who knows, after 60, 65, you have some cataract, you have to remove it. It means that knower as a sense organ keeps on changing. So whatever changes, it may be a relative knower, it cannot be a perfect knower. And a relative knower cannot give me the right knowledge of the real self.
Where do the boundaries come from? Are they a product of experience?
No. Eyes, you put the object very near to the eye, it is limited in perception, it cannot see. If the object is too far from the sense organ, you cannot see. Same thing with all the sense organ. It has got its limitation. That is the first thing. And because these sense organs are constantly changing, because the sense organs are constantly changing, it may perceive one thing at one time and second thing at the second time. It does not give me the right knowledge. Knowledge means knowledge. Knowledge does not change. I know your name, I know your appearance, so you have to be the same person. Knowledge should not change. That is another way to understand. If the knower changes, it gives a different perception. So now we have to understand how many knowers we have. Knower number 1, sense organs. Known are the objects of the world. Now see another limitation. I just remembered. These sense organs are windows to the external world. They do not open inside. They do not open inside. You close your eyes, the mind projects that darkness or emptiness, but the eyes cannot see. So because eyes cannot see any object, so it says it is darkness. It may not be darkness. It may not be darkness. So eyes is a sense organ. When they are limited, when they are changing, it means they cannot be the perfect knower. So it means what? Conclusion is the sense organ cannot know the real self. Another reason, sense organs are made up of the matter, material objects. It follows the laws of physics. I see you means the image reflected into the retina about you, and then the mind says, here you are. So it's purely a material phenomena. So see all those limitations. It is constantly changing, it is limited in perception, and it does not have a consciousness of its own. It depends on the mind to supply the consciousness. So hence, the knower number 1 cannot see the real self. So last time we discussed, but now because we want to discover who am I, so now we are 100% clear the sense organ cannot know the real self. Why? For the eyes to see any object, the properties of an object and the properties of eyes should have some similarity, some similar properties of the eyes and the object. Then only I can see any object. It should have a form, it should have some name, it should have some color. Then the eyes can see. Eyes cannot hear the sound. That is the reason. So we have 5 types of knowledge, limited knowledge that we receive from these sense organs. Eyes cannot hear, tongue cannot see. They are limited in nature. So when I say the real self is all-pervading infinite entity, it means how can the finite can recognize and know the infinite? No way. So we get rid of, so it means that is the reason we close our eyes. A symbolic nature in all meditation, a symbolic stature, that we are aware that no sense organ can help me know the real self. That is the only meaning. You can meditate with eyes open, you can meditate with eyes closed, it does not make a difference. But until we develop that level of awareness where we check the mind, don't start looking from the sense organ. Why? Because the real self cannot be found by the sense organ. So whether I am with eyes open, I am listening everything, all the sounds, but mind is not there, not entertaining any objects of the sense organ. That is a rise in awareness, and that is the property of the knower number 1. Knower number 2. Now, how can we say that the senses are known? Senses are known to the mind. Mind becomes aware of all the 5 sense organs. So it means now the sense organ with reference to the mind is objects, 5 objects of senses. With reference to the world, it still works as a knower. We have no problem. Let us continue to work as a knower number 1 while living in the external world. But at the same time, we are aware real self cannot be known by the sense organ. Now the mind becomes the knower number 2, because mind is a knower to all the sense organs. Mind is the knower number 2. Knower, it knows whether I have a hard seeing an object, I should go to an ophthalmologist to get my eyes examined, and they give me the glasses. So who knows it? Mind. So how the mind treats my eyes as an object. So where there is an object, I cannot find my real self. So simple. So there is another. So sense organs are a relative knower. They are not an absolute knower. So unless we find an absolute knower, we can find out, oh, that may be an infinite, all-pervading. Oh, here I can get some idea of understanding. Knower number 3, who knows the mind is upset, mind is anxious, mind is crazy, mind is attached. Who knows it? There is some agencies, there is some awareness, there is some consciousness behind the mind. That consciousness knows I am upset. It means the mind has become an object now. Mind is known now. With reference to the sense organ, mind is the knower. With reference to the pure consciousness behind the mind, who knows the mind is also changing. We know the mind, mental states are changing. Who recognizes the mental state? So we say it is a knower number 3. It is the witness consciousness. It is the real seer. It is the real self. It is the real self. So that is what we want to discover and validate. This is me, this is who am I, and then we have to validate by understanding this real self is of the nature of peace, happiness, love, truth, and wisdom. And the Gita then further validates whether this real self is also the supreme consciousness, which we normally refer as a God. Are we God? That we will take up later. We are going slowly. That is why the 18 chapters. We have to solve a lot of puzzles by explaining knower number 1, knower number 2, knower number 3.
or the average person or the seeker is in the mind observe itself.
Yeah.
So because knower number 3, I feel like it can't be that easy.
It is
right?
not
So
easy.
When I'm observing the mind, that would be obviously this knower number 3, but that couldn't be, right? Are there layers of the mind in the mind?
Yes, yes.
Observing itself.
That is why we say we have to purify the mind, so that this purified state of the mind, and then there is only a real self, the knower number 3 in the mind. Otherwise this mind becomes crazy, lazy, agitated, it mixes up and it brings a lot of confusion. So the knower and the known are separate. What did you say?
Someone like me, if I'm agitated and I know I'm agitated, that's the mind knowing the mind? Am I stuck in the mind completely, 100% in the mind? Or is there some knower number 3?
Beautiful point, beautiful point. If the mind is agitated and I know I am agitated, normally every person knows that I am angry and agitated. So it is mind knowing the mind. One part of the mind is knowing the other part of the mind. But the moment I claim I am agitated, so that I is the real knower, agitation stops. Instantly it stops. It becomes a witness consciousness. It is something like you are standing across the road watching the traffic. You have already separated yourself from the mind which is agitated and a knower which is behind it. Knower 3 is absolute. It is the real self. So knower, now see the other perspective. That knower is the knower of object with the name in the form. So if the knower is a knower of anything with the name in the form, it is an object. Knower 3 cannot become the known, cannot become the object. So what we derive from here? We derive from here that real self cannot become the object. If there is an entity we realize, we experience, we know, that cannot become the object, we have found the real self. I am agitated, it is an object. Mind is an object, agitation is an object, experience is an object. Now say, for example, just imagine like a we study mathematics, geometry, we imagine. So if the knower 3 is known, means what? There must be a knower behind so there is a knower number 4. So if the knower number 4 becomes the known, there must be a knower number 5. So it goes to the infinity, we cannot find it. So hence it concludes that knower number 3 is the real knower, because now it cannot become the object of perception, object of the knowledge. It remains the self. No, but then who knows the real self? Who knows the real self? Simple answer. Real self knows the real self by itself. How come you say that? Simple example. The sun, the moment you have a morning sun, it lightens every object. Do you bring the candle to see the sun? Sun knows by itself. Sun is a pure consciousness. Consciousness has an illuminating power. The mind does not have an illuminating power. That's why in deep sleep we don't know where we are. But still the consciousness is present in deep sleep. How do I know it? Now I'm deviating, but I'm going to a very higher principle that is explained in the Gita. but it's good for a deviation. So how to know that? When I wake up, yes, you wake up, mind is active. Then what mind says? I had a sound sleep. So what is this sound sleep? Did you know in the deep sleep? No. It was a memory. So who collected that memory, that consciousness? Mind did not collect that memory that I had a sound sleep. It is the causal body. We will talk about that in detail. Causal body. So I am free. So that consciousness we want to know. Now the seeker finds out who we are with the knower number 1, 2, and the 3. Who I am the body. Who sees the body? My sense organs. But my sense organ cannot know the real self, hence I cannot be the body. Am I rich or poor? Who says? Mind says. Mind is an object, knower number 2. So I cannot add a tag in the real self that real self is rich or poor. It has nothing to male or female. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So with this understanding, we go little deeper. In the previous verse, what we found, that wise people do not grieve the death or any kind of suffering. Why? There is no possibility of death of a real self. And wise people do not grieve because it compares, when I am not attached to the person, or many thousands of people are being killed in Ukraine and Russia war on both the sides, I don't grieve. But when I am attached, I grieve. So a knower, the wise have understood, I am the knower number 3. I gained the self-knowledge a bit. So I check myself that I do not get carried away by the RSN syndrome. Undesirable events, even include the death, will continue to happen in the lives of both the wise and the ignorant. Those who do not know the real self or those who know. The events will continue to happen. Why it will happen? That's a universal law. We discussed about it. Universal grief of death, universal pleasure of being born. So it will continue to happen. We have to be very clear that if I am awakened, it does not mean that my body will not die. Body has to follow the universal law. There is a big difference between how such undesirable events are faced by the wise and the ignorant. Ignorant collects more impressions and it continues the cycle of birth and the death. And the wise says, oh, this is a universal law, universal truth. Let me perform all the rituals and maintain the calmness, indifference. So you see the ignorant people suffer due to the reasons like death. Just as the child suffers when his balloon burst. The wise people know. Wise people do not suffer because he knows the facts with respect to the death. Just as an adult knows about the nature of the balloon. And what happens to the ignorant people? They will continue to suffer as long as they are ignorant. They will cry, and after a few weeks they will stop. Another event of the death comes, an event of the disease comes, and they continue to suffer. So with that knowledge in the background, we have to understand, do I think I am the body, breath, mind, intellect, ego, they all are matter. They belong to the knower number 1 and 2. Knower number 3 is independent of it. That awareness, that consciousness is independent. You see another way. When someone dies, the body is there. We said, his body is there. But when someone knocks the door, instead of the body, we say, somebody is there, some person is there. So there is a difference between the person and the body. Person and the body. We don't say, this body is there. We don't say this body is there. So what happens? We have a wrong notion about an individual. There is no I, still we think we are an individual. That individual contains the body, breath, mind, intellect, and I thought plus the pure consciousness. Individual, if I say individual is equal to reflected consciousness plus the pure consciousness. Or you simply say individual is simply a reflected consciousness. We will talk about this word also, reflected consciousness, as we move. An individual becomes angry in the first meeting, so your mind concludes that this guy seems to be an angry person, so angry individual. I don't know you for years. I create a wrong notion about you. Similarly, I create a wrong notion about myself. When I create a wrong notion, say for example, I became angry and people rebuked me, and these events are repeated 5 or 6 times, then my mind starts thinking about it. I develop a guilt consciousness. So that guilt lies with the individual. It does not lie with the knower number 3. The real self is pure consciousness. It is not at all affected, but it is covered by the repeated experiences of the pain and the sorrow, and that causes lot of problem. You see that the mind is exposed to these situations in the modern world, and we have a guilt, anxiety, duality, stress, suffering, depression, lot. So that individual comes and goes. Who is an individual? Body, mind, breath, intellect, and many thoughts together constitutes a personality. Personality comes from the persona, means the mask. That mask covers the real self. That is why we are not able to find the real self. So that individual dies, individual takes birth. There is a continuous cycle of birth and death of the real self, not real self, but the false I, that individual. So we claim we die. So again you go back to the fear of the death, and we have that fear of the death, and then it is yet unknown to me, it is unknowable, but the fear of death is because I have a fear of losing what I have, what I possess, and what belongs to me. So nothing belongs to me. I die, this house does not chase me. The bank dollar does not chase me. Oh, come on, die. You died, so I will die with you. Car does not chase me. Leave aside, even the living beings do not chase me. I will also go into the coffin because you are lying in the coffin. Forget about it. After a few years, I remarry. Or maybe after a few months, remarry. There may be some social custom. Sometimes we don't care, and the next day we remarry. We have a relationship with the others. So that is an individual, is not me. So understanding, now I am coming to the text number, verse number 12. The verse number 12 says, Master now explains, I was not there, you were not there, It is not like that. Then what? So the master is using two negations. First he says, I was not there. You were not there means before, past. It is not like that. Means what? I was there before this birth of the body. I will be there after the birth of the body. Why? The real self, consciousness, doesn't die. The entire Eastern wisdom says we take birth and the death. So ask yourself, what does it mean by 5 birth and the death? Body has changed, mind has changed, intellect has changed, situation has changed, event has changed, but that I did not change. That is why I say I take many births. That I did not change. That I did not change. That I did not change. Many birth and death. Like Krishna will explain it further, that like we change our clothes, similarly we change our body, breath, mind and intellect, but we do not change. That will come later. So what I will get after understanding and what is the practical application of this. Let the body take birth and die. How I get benefit? Understand, we are not an individual. We are not only the person with this body. When we claim we are the body, we forget, we get deeply attached, and RSM syndrome takes over. I'm laying a foundation of the verse number 12. Why we are having a wrong notion. One day surely we will lose the body. Money we earn, food is in the refrigerator, gas in the car, all are in action, all are changing. What is changing has to change the name and the form. But the real self, the knower number 3, does not change the name and the form. It is pure consciousness. It is not limited by a boundary. Mouse is limited by a boundary. My body limits me. My mind limits me with the body. But the consciousness is unlimited, all pervading, all pervading.
Is it primarily from being around other people that we get this misconception? If someone was alone always from birth till...
Yeah. Basically what happens that the moment we are born, it is an extreme tamasic guna. Tamasic guna means that we sleep for 23 hours. We are totally ignorant. What happens with first experience of the pleasure? The impression is accumulated in the mind. When I don't have an identity of I-ness, that is, my mother breastfed me. My mother changed the wet clothes. My mother made me comfortable. So my mind gathers the impression as if the peace, happiness, love and the wisdom are located outside. I have to make an effort. In being child, I cry to make an effort to get those pleasures. But the entire existence does not stop there. As we grow older, couple of years, what happens? The Rajasic Guna takes over. Why the Rajasic Guna takes over? Because we find an effort can make me happy. So effort, why I make an effort? Because I have a desire. What is that desire? Desire to seek peace and happiness. Where to seek the desire of peace and happiness? In the objects outside, where it is not. So even by being overactive, hyperactive, I still feel, I live in insanity that peace and happiness are lying outside, are located outside, in a person, in a relationship, in a situation, in a condition, in a money, in possessions, in recognition, but there it is not. So unless the person understands this, and he says, then what is the way? Then their humility comes, receptivity comes, and he becomes a seeker. So who becomes a seeker? It means there is a sattvic guna. Sattvic guna means the knowledge. It refers to the knowledge. Don't identify where you don't get the peace and happiness. Identify yourself where you have a chance of getting the permanent peace and happiness. So that is where that idea triggers in the intellect of a human being. Oh, I have to find out. No, I must know. Then the master says the three goals that you have made in your life are basically the means. They are not the goals. Only goal is to evolve, to rise in consciousness. Ultimately, you reach to the highest state of the consciousness. A little deeper aspect into this verse. Reflect on it. When I say the real self does not have a prior non-existence. Real self, knower number 3, does not have a prior non-existence. I'm using in a negative case the way the verse is. So it means it does not have a prior non-existence. It means it already existed before that. I'm deviating a bit and I'll come back, because again otherwise more deviation means we will lose understanding this verse. Physical body, it is the material cause of my body, is provided by my parents. Fertilization of the egg and the semen, they go together, and the mother, we live in the womb of the mother for 9 months. It's purely the physical body. Matter does not have a nature of consciousness, from where that consciousness enters into so-called the womb of the body. That is an efficient cause. Efficient cause means it is the ultimate cause. Now the consciousness there in the baby, infant, or you can say when the baby is in the womb of the mother. It's a little deviation, I'll come back. Now that consciousness is always present. That consciousness becomes the enclosed body, is known as infant in the womb of the mother. So that is why the master says real self does not have a prior non-existence. So that is why I explained to you, say for example, my date of birth is January 1950, for example. So before, did I exist? Yes, I existed in the womb of the mother. I existed for 9 months. So I was born when the soul entered the womb of the mother. Here the soul is consciousness. So now if the consciousness is already there, then it will enter. Consciousness is already present. Now say if new self enters just after fertilization as the physical level takes place. So from where the self enters, from where the consciousness enters? Self enters into the body like a spark from nowhere. And that is a invalid argument, invalid understanding. So how can the inert matter bring the consciousness? No way. Matter cannot have a property of the consciousness. Otherwise, if it has the ability of consciousness, the mouse will also say, I know that you are holding me in your hand. And that is what the physical body consists of. It means, how can the inert matter bring consciousness? No way. What is matter neither knows itself nor it knows others. Nobody knows that the knowledge has come because of the self, of the nature of the consciousness. Consciousness cannot come out because somebody should know it has come, but it is already there. It cannot die. So what our master says, don't find the objective solutions of subjective problems. The consciousness is knower number 3. It is a subjective reality, and if you want to give a basis of subjective reality, consciousness, to the matter, you are creating a problem of misunderstanding, misconception. And that is the reason the science trying to find out the seat of, they say the seat of consciousness is the brain, but the brain is nothing but the DNA, the hormones and the protein molecule. If you can make the protein molecule conscious, then all the protein can be made conscious on the table. It is not possible. Consciousness cannot, matter cannot become the conscious entity. Matter and the consciousness are independent entities. In the presence of the consciousness, the matter works. In the 11th chapter of the Gita, Krishna defines how come the God, so-called the God, is pervading everywhere. We will understand that. Another argument that Krishna gives, don't try to solve the relative problem in the relative world. World is a physical problem, can be solved there only. So what it says, it is not true. If I define the verse number 2, it is not true that any time I was not, nor you, nor these people, nor is it true that any time of us shall we ever cease to be. We don't cease to exist because we are consciousness. We are the knower number 3. We are the pure consciousness. Consciousness is knowledge. Knowledge is intelligence. Don't you see the entire world works with the extreme intelligence? How can you say it works with the extreme intelligence? Say, for example, if the earth stops moving around its center, the sun stops moving around its center, we will not exist at all. We have 60 trillion cells in the body. Every cell contains the same consciousness. Consciousness means here intelligence, knowledge. How the matter can convert, how the protein and carbohydrate knows it has to convert into a nose, convert into the eyes, into the head, into the hair, into the shoulder. No. Without intelligence, matter does not have that intelligence. There has to be someone, the doer, knower, who has an intent. Oh, send the protein to the nose, lack of protein. Pump the heart. Look at your own body only. So that consciousness is present, that intelligence is present, that awareness is present everywhere. That is why the sun does not strike the earth does not strike the moon. So it means still there is some doer. And that doer is nothing but intelligence. That intelligence, if I'm intelligent, I claim, that has to be with the consciousness. So I deviated more and then I return back to the same thing. That knower number 3 is all pervading. All pervading. One consciousness is present everywhere. Everywhere, in everything, in every object, entire cosmos. Some person dies, I see the person body as an object, so death becomes an object of sorrow. We normally grieve for anyone who dies, but that is an object of the sorrow. And at the same time, we say he has left, so that he is the real self who has left, the body still remains. Body still remains. We have to follow this. So it means, it does not mean, it is not we had never been before, nor that we never existed in the past, we will not exist in the future. So we declare, because of attachment with the body, because of the knower 1 and the 2, we say who lives, another 100 years, 200 years, or 150 years. So our strong identification with the body causes these impressions. Otherwise, that consciousness is eternal. Eternal means it remains forever. It bypasses the time. The first definition of the real self is given. That is why it is eternal. You have a lot to contemplate before we move to the other in relationship to the verse number 11. You have verse number 11 and verse number 12. That is all for today. So you have to contemplate and think what makes, for example, go to the ultimate cause of everything. I'm speaking, yes, speaking. So what is the cause of my speaking? The first cause is my using the tongue, the lips, the larynx, lungs, and the breath. So what is the cause behind it? The life. What is the cause behind it? The mind. What is the cause behind the mind? Is the consciousness. Mind is the knower number 2, knower number 3. If the knower number 3 is absent, forget about this lips and the tongue, and there is no speaker and there is no listener. So ultimately, that is the process of meditation. We can enter into meditation even while listening to it. If the mind is pure, we are a seeker of the highest order, there is no issue. We can be in that state of the meditation even while we are listening.